Hi everyone and welcome. Today I will be talking about the most common mistakes people tend to make when studying Japanese. And I have also made some of these mistakes myself, so I definitely wish I knew the things I know now. Please do keep in mind that a lot of what I'm about to say is not based on any scientific evidence or anything, and it's just stuff I noticed. To start off, I wish I knew how important it was to specify my Japanese learning goals. My goal had always just been to become fluent. And yes, that's a great end goal, but it's really easy to become overwhelmed with this goal because of how long it can take you to get to where you want to be. A lot of times, it is more helpful to set smaller or even just more specific goals. For example, if you're learning Japanese only to watch anime without subtitles, it's not really necessary to learn kanji or other reading skills, and you can mostly just focus on listening skills. You can also try breaking down your bigger goals into smaller, more manageable ones, like how many grammar points or vocabulary words you want to study each day. Now, the second mistake, which is not thinking in Japanese, may seem a little bit confusing, but I will do my best to explain what I mean. If the language you are most comfortable with is English, you'll probably try to connect each Japanese vocabulary word that you learn with its corresponding English translation. And there's nothing wrong with that because it's completely natural. Perhaps you learned the word noto while studying, and you connected it with its English translation, notebook. You then proceeded to binge watch some anime and heard noto so much while watching that you don't really connect it to its English translation of notebook anymore. So every time you see a notebook lying around, you might be able to directly correspond the notebook that you see with noto instead of thinking about the English meaning first and then translating it over. So let's say that your first language is English and Japanese is your second language. When learning Japanese, you can translate everything from English because you already know English, but when you were learning English, you didn't have any other language to translate anything from. So how exactly did you learn the word notebook in English? Perhaps someone was using a notebook and called it a notebook, so you learned to correspond the object that you saw to the word notebook. So I think that if you want to achieve the same level in Japanese as you have achieved in English, changing your thought process in this way might be helpful. So now let's move on to the third mistake that people tend to make when studying Japanese. Using Japanese romanization can seem like a very appealing option, and many people start out with using romanization to help them pronounce vocabulary or write out sentences. But I think it's really important to eventually try to transition into using hiragana and katakana instead. Learning hiragana and katakana are definitely not the most difficult things when studying Japanese, and many people can learn these two scripts in a very short period of time. I have two main reasons for why learning hiragana and katakana are really important. Firstly, you can hardly find any romanization written anywhere. Feel free to correct me, but I haven't really seen that many Japanese products that use romanization to help you pronounce everything written on the packaging. And I believe that in Japan, street signs, store names, instruction manuals, really anything, hardly has any romanization on it. So it would be pretty hard to read anything if you solely rely on using romanization. Secondly, if you rely on romanization to help you pronounce everything, chances are a lot of your pronunciation might sound really different from the way native speakers sound. Using romanization is where you use the Latin alphabet, and because Japanese isn't a Latin alphabet-based language, it won't really sound right. So basically, you are still pronouncing and treating the words as if they were in English and not as if they were in Japanese. The way you pronounce this and this are different. I think most people will agree that learning kanji is pretty difficult. However, it is crucial for daily life in Japan and things like that. But there are certain things I don't really recommend doing when learning kanji. For example, I don't think it's super necessary to know how to write every single kanji character. and I say this because a lot of things are typed nowadays. And I think the more important part is just being able to read kanji and know what it means. I'm not saying that you should avoid writing kanji completely, but just that you maybe shouldn't focus all of your attention on how to write the most complex kanji ever, because it just doesn't seem very necessary nowadays. I'm pretty sure that even the Japanese language proficiency test doesn't require you to do any writing. Knowing how to read kanji is still really difficult, and when studying anything, it's so much easier when it's actually fun. I recently found an app called Mochi Mochi, which makes learning kanji so much more fun. In my previous video, I mentioned that I don't really use any apps to study kanji, but that was before I found Mochi Mochi, who was kind enough to sponsor this video. So thank you so much to Mochi Mochi.
0.
Some of you may know of something called the curve of forgetting, and how you can use spaced repetition to more effectively remember things. And the curve of forgetting basically shows how the information we memorize eventually slips from our memory. By using spaced repetition to memorize things, which by the way is scientifically proven, we are able to refresh our memory right before the information slips away. Mochi Mochi uses its unique feature of golden time to help memorize kanji and vocabulary more efficiently. This is an example of one course that they offer, the N5 Kanji and Vocabulary course, and as you can see, the course is broken down into small practical lessons so that you don't get overwhelmed. Also, as I mentioned before, it's important to set specific goals, whether that's to pass the JLPT and other tests, or to have a conversation in Japanese with someone else. Mochi Mochi offers so many choices in terms of courses that you can take, each targeted towards different goals. If you want to pass the JLPT, there are definitely courses for that. If you want to learn daily conversation, there are also courses for that as well. In fact, Mochi Mochi can actually help you memorize up to 1,000 kanji and vocabulary in just 1 month. Mochi Mochi will pretty much calculate when to show you specific flashcards, and will even send you notifications reminding you to practice things that are almost being forgotten. The app also keeps track of the words you've learned and categorizes them into 5 levels of memorization. The levels range from 1 to 5, 1 meaning that you just learned the word, and level 5 meaning that you are more familiar with it. Additionally, the app has such a cute interface, and it truly does make learning Japanese more enjoyable and interesting.
5.
There are many different activities, and you can actually hear how the vocabulary is pronounced. I remember watching so many videos on the best apps for memorizing kanji, and I never really found one that I was satisfied with, which is why I didn't introduce any apps to you guys in my previous video on studying Japanese. After trying out Mochi Mochi, I think this is truly the only kanji app that I need. So please try it out and let me know what you think. You can download the app in the Apple App Store or on Google Play, and I will provide links in the description as well as in the comments. Once again, thank you so much to Mochi Mochi for partnering with me in this video. Now let's talk about the 5th and final mistake that I will cover in today's video. And that mistake is only using textbooks. If you watched my previous Japanese studying video, you might remember that I love using textbooks. I think that they are organized really well, so it's really easy to create study plans off of. However, the issue with textbooks is that the sentences often sound really awkward and, well, textbooky. Sometimes textbooks can also be outdated, and it's just not a super good idea to rely solely on them. A lot of times, people don't necessarily talk in the way that textbooks teach you to talk. For example, you could be learning how to say something that hasn't even been used since the 18th century. This is why I think immersion is super important. I think in pretty much every single language learning video, there is some sort of suggestion to do immersion. If you have the time and resources, you could definitely go to Japan. But if you don't, you could just use other ways like talking to native speakers in your community or on online websites, watching anime and films, reading manga, really anything. And that's pretty much it for this video. There are still a lot of things that I haven't really talked about yet, so I'm considering making a part 2 to this video. But anyway, let me know what you thought of this video, and thank you so much for watching.